Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. My name is Amber and I am 15 and a half-ish weeks pregnant. Today is Wednesday, January 15th, so on Friday, I will be 16 weeks pregnant. This is my first pregnancy. This channel is basically right now dedicated toward more personal things about my life, including this pregnancy. Eventually, I also want to cover makeup and things like that. Skincare, whatever, things that are not covered on my main channel. My main channel, I cover true crime, missing person cases, anti-MLM, things like that. If you're interested, I'll leave a link down below. But anyways, so you didn't click on this video for that. You clicked on this video because I want to talk to you guys about NIPT. Now, being a first-time mother, I did not know that there was even such a thing available. Guys don't know what NIPT is, non-invasive prenatal testing. So there is a thing called amniocentesis where they can take, and I don't know exactly, they can take fluid from the fetus, the baby. I don't know. They take something and they can test your baby for different congenital disorders, including things like Down syndrome, Turner syndrome, things like that. But with amniocentesis testing, there is a very small chance, I guess, of having a miscarriage, which that alone is alarming. So I guess luckily they have come out with this thing called NIPT. So there are different companies, whatever. At my first OBGYN appointment, they told me that there was this non-invasive prenatal testing, which is something that they can do by just drawing your blood, sending off to a laboratory, and then they send the results back to your doctor, and then you can also see it online. So here's something interesting. So at my first OBGYN appointment, I found out how far along I was. And at that point, I was about 9 weeks. I think it was 9 weeks and 5 days or 9 weeks and 4 days, something like that. It was the week before my birthday. I did find out I was pregnant on November 21st by 4 pea sticks. And then also I went to Planned Parenthood because I thought these could be false positives, even though there were 4 separate tests. If you're curious in that story of how I found out I was pregnant or I didn't know I was pregnant, I honestly thought I had breast cancer. I will leave that link down below. This test is recommended pretty much according to my doctor and according to the literature I found online. This test is recommended for anybody pregnant now, any age, any demographic, any area, any I keep wanting to say any gender, any race or any ethnicity, anyone that wants to know if they or their partner may have carried some form of genetic disorder that could be present in your fetus. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Oh, and one of the things that the NIPT tests for, which to me was a very exciting part of getting all this testing, is also knowing what your baby's gender is. When you go to do this, they just, the one that I did, they just took a couple vials of blood. My OBGYN also took 8 vials for themselves to test for every single STD under the sun, and also like your cholesterol, your vitamin levels, drugs, all that stuff. And so they took all that blood, right? And they told me, when I left the first appointment, they said, here's a little story time. So they said, okay, you give us blood, or, you give blood, and then within 5 to 7 business days, you will know not only how your child is doing, your baby is doing, if it is at a risk for any of these things, but also what the gender is. And of course, I want to know. I wanted to know, and I was super excited. So after I walked out of my appointment, like the little room, they did the ultrasound first, and then they took me to the room, and I met the doctor and saw the doctor, and they did the Doppler. They heard the baby's heartbeat again, and it brought me to tears. Honestly, I didn't expect it because I didn't know, but it just literally hearing my baby's heartbeat brings me to tears every time. So when I got out, I was like, okay, I definitely do want to do that testing. I would like to be aware of any potential dangers that my baby might have. Like, again, I'm a new mom. I don't know much about any of this stuff, and I didn't realize how much stress doing that was going to cause me. So here's what happened then. So they take 8 vials of blood. So fast forward 4 weeks later, I'm stressed out the whole time because I'm like, you know things are fine, right? And you have faith and you're like, okay, I just want a healthy baby. Um, the gender thing is really cool to find out, but I honestly want a healthy baby, and obviously I want myself to be healthy. Pretty sure I'm healthy, but it's kind of like when you're driving on the road and there's a cop car behind you and you know you're not breaking the law, you're not speeding, you're not doing anything illegal, but they're right behind you and you're still like, I don't want to get pulled over, even though you're not breaking any laws. It's kind of like that feeling, like everything's okay, but you're like, just what if. So the time comes for my second OBGYN appointment, and I go there. They don't do an ultrasound at this one, which is kind of like disappointing, but they're going to do one in February, early February. So they have me pee, they weigh me, do all that, all that stuff. I go back in the room, talk to the doctor, talk about, if I have any concerns, how the holidays were, etc. They take the Doppler out, listen to the baby again. And it's really cool. And so I'm like, okay, so how is everything? Oh no, we get out of the room, and as he's walking me to the counter, I'm like, well, did the blood test come back? Like, I've been, kind of just waiting for a phone call. And he looks at the chart and he's like, oh, everything's negative, you're fine, everything is perfect. And I was like, oh, so the baby is good. I was like, do you know the gender? And he said, oh no, that was just our testing, for the panel of like STDs and your not blood sugar, I think that's something different, but like your vitamin levels, drug tests, like all that stuff, whatever it is that they test for with 8 vials of blood. He said everything was great from their office. And I was like, well, and I probed. I was like, what about the NIPT testing? What about that whole thing? And he said, they didn't give you a kit at your last appointment. I said, no, they just said I was doing it right then and there. They took my blood, explained the whole thing. Well, there was a miscommunication somewhere in that office, which makes me feel a little, So at that appointment, he had some words with the lady, and I don't know what happened. So basically, she gave me this little kit call, and he looks at the chart and he's like, oh, everything's negative, you're fine, everything is perfect. And I was like, oh, so the baby is good. I was like, do you know the gender? And he said, oh no, that was just our testing, for the panel of like STDs and your not blood sugar, I think that's something different, but like your vitamin levels, drug tests, like all that stuff, whatever it is that they test for with 8 vials of blood. He said everything was great from their office. And I was like, well, and I probed. I was like, what about the NIPT testing? What about that whole thing? And he said, they didn't give you a kit at your last appointment. I said, no, they just said I was doing it right then and there. They took my blood, explained the whole thing. Well, there was a miscommunication somewhere in that office, which makes me feel a little, So at that appointment, he had some words with the lady, and I don't know what happened. So basically, she gave me this little kit that I was to take to like one of the on a list of places to go to where they would take my blood, and then they would put it in this kit, send it out to the lab, whatever lab it is. And so I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit annoyed after that appointment because I'm like, I have waited for 4 weeks. I could have known this information at least 3 weeks ago. It could have put my mind at ease. It could have, because I'm a worrywart. I stress out about so much. So then once they gave me the kit, I actually had more literature. So I tried to go that day. I didn't make it in time, but I go the next day. So I went last Tuesday. So literally a week from yesterday. And, I go early in the morning, they take my blood, and they said in 5 to 7 business days, your results will either be online available or your doctor's actually going to call you first, is what they said. And at that appointment, they kind of freaked me out because they said, well, they might call you and let you know the results over the phone, or they might call you into the office. And you never want to be called into the office for test results, because even if it's not bad, your mind just kind of goes to like a scary place, at least. So I said, okay. And it wasn't until this past weekend, where I was like reading all the literature and I started going to Dr. Google and like literally looking up like, what is all of these things? So the thing that they test for is this. It is trisomy 21, trisomy 18, and if I'm not pronouncing this right, I'm sorry, trisomy 13, monosomy X, triploidy, also 22q11.2 deletion syndrome. So that plus there's some other things like Turner syndrome. Let's go over what some of these things are, because I am telling you, I found videos online talking about this, but most of the videos that were first in the search results for me when I was going crazy, I think it was Sunday. It was either Saturday or Sunday. Absolutely going crazy, scared shitless, if I'm being completely frank. Most of the videos that I found online, and this is to no one's discredit, but they were people that got really bad results back. Some of them got false positives. Some of them got really bad ones right away. So basically the way that they take your blood, and when you get your testing back, you can either get low risk or high risk. The high risk, low risk, all of these things, it says they are independent of maternal age. So these are things that can affect anyone, like I said, of any walk of life, any ethnicity, any age, because what was really alarming to me was one of the videos I found. Oh my God, this poor woman, I believe she was 24 years old at the time, and she got a high risk result. And so they went with after that, they had to talk to a genetics counselor, I believe, doctor or whatever, a specialist, I'm sorry. And then they also did the amniocentesis and I think something called CVS. So I've only done the NIPT, but there are other tests that you can do. And like I said, I just got my results back today. I did get a phone call 2 days ago, but I got the actual results in front of me online that I could access today. The videos that I saw were very upsetting. They didn't really tell me too much information about what exactly the tests covered, except for some of them. And like I said, the one family that I came across, it broke my heart, and it's my own fault. It just further scared the crap out of me, and it made me so concerned, because I'm like, this young woman, she's 24, she's already had 2 healthy kids, and so she's already had like healthy pregnancies, and she's coming up with this like really bad test result. And then I'm like thinking about myself, like I'm like, okay, well, I'm in my 30s. I have never had children. I have never been pregnant. This is my first pregnancy. I don't know what's happening. I don't know if I'm healthy. Anyway, it's never been my dream, so I've never looked into it. I've never seen a reproductive doctor, like someone that is, I don't mean like a gynecologist, but I've never had IVF. I've never looked in to see how my eggs are. I've never, like, none of that. Like, I've never cared, because it wasn't a thing I was interested in. It wasn't something that I was hoping to happen in this lifetime. Now here's another thing. I'm also the type of person that I believe in the freedom of choice, and yes, your body, your decision. For my own personal reasons, I would never have an abortion. Not for religious reasons, not for whatever, but for myself and for just things that I have experienced in my own life and things that I've been told myself, things that are very personal. I may have talked about them before, but I don't care to address them right now. I myself would never have an abortion. I could literally not live with myself. And that is, I have friends that have had abortions. I know people close to me. It's not about other people's choices and what they do. I am not one to judge. That is not my deal. I am not the person that sits here and like points fingers and no, that's you. You have your own reasons, and that's fine. Just like I have my own reasons, and I would never push this belief on anyone else. This is just me. This is just me. But I simply could not ever be okay with myself, and have an abortion. Like and the reason I mention that is because some of the things that they test for, which we're going to go over, are not just Down syndrome. Obviously Down syndrome is a big one on here, and it's the one that I'm most familiar with because I don't even know what trisomy or whatever, like Turner's, whatever. There's so many that I don't even know what they are. I've never heard of. Some of them basically almost guarantee that your baby will not make it to full term. You are at risk during your pregnancy for yourself. You could die. There are risks that your baby will be very, just have a ton of potential hardships in their life. Like the gal that I watched on YouTube, I could not stop crying. I was literally watching these videos by her, and she's such a strong woman, so strong. And she also could not have an abortion, right? So she went through the whole pregnancy, and like knowing that her baby had a cleft lip, knowing that her baby did not have a nose, because they can measure these things. So it's not like just these tests, like you don't just get this test and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm at high risk, and then that's it. Like, we don't know what's going to happen. No, after that, they can do the amniocentesis testing for further confirmation or denial that this was accurate or not. And there were some false positives that I saw online, and I was like, what? You know what I mean? Like a couple women that, you know, I were blessed, I guess, in that sense. They had some positive ones, and they were freaking out, and then they did the amniocentesis, and it came back totally negative. And from my understanding, the amniocentesis is pretty accurate, but this is supposed to also be very accurate. I don't know. But basically, you know, her baby was born, and her baby only lived for 1 hour. And you could see her baby. Her baby was 4 pounds, and, you know, like, just not fully developed. The baby was not crying. Had her baby survived more than an hour, her baby would not have been able to breastfeed. So there was just a lot of very troubling things. And I can't even fathom what she went through, what she's still going through, because this was not that long ago. So I watched all this stuff. I freaked myself out, you know, as I do. I couldn't find many videos that like went over everything. So let's go over what they tested and what these different things are. And by the way, I think I mentioned this before or in a video on my main channel. These genetic conditions that they're testing for are conditions that the mother cannot control. This is not something that she could have prevented, or the father. This is something that happened in either the fertilized egg or the sperm that fertilized the egg. It could have been in the father's genetic makeup, or it could have been in the mother's. Obviously some conditions could be more prevalent in older mothers. That is something that I've definitely read. Some of it like less likely in older fathers, like older sperm, but it's more or less like genetic mutations or whatever that egg or sperm could carry, or both. You never know. So I don't want any of you guys to think like, oh, this is something that can be prevented. Like if you find out that someone has a positive or like a high risk for this, or you yourself, this is nothing you did. This is nothing your partner did. This is just, you know, it's just a very sad genetic condition that occurred in either the egg or the sperm, or both. These are not like fetal alcohol syndrome or something from, you know, doing illegal drugs or trauma to the womb or anything like that. And again, these are not 100% accurate. It does say like some of these are 99%, 95, whatever. Like, you can look up this stuff online yourself. I'm not giving this information. Again, I'm not a doctor, clearly. This is just a first-time mom learning as she goes. I'm just trying to share my knowledge and experience with you guys. If any of you are also curious, just like myself, because this is a scary thing to face. Whether or not you're going through with the testing, it's now that I know about it, like I mean, obviously did not film myself when I was going through my emotions, but I was in tears, you know? So, I mean, just like thinking about like, what if it's scary, because I love my baby so much. And the idea that something could be wrong genetically, like you don't really think about that at first. Like when you're pregnant, like I was just like so excited and I was so scared of birth. And then like to have this in the back of your mind, it's not fun. It's like very, very scary. So yeah, my heart goes out to any moms that are like thinking about this like myself. Like, I know it's just crazy. And we are going to go over my results too in this video, just so you know. So the first thing that it says here is trisomy 21 is Down syndrome. It says baby with Down syndrome have 3 copies of chromosome 21 and have intellectual disabilities that range from mild to severe. Children with Down syndrome will need extra medical care depending on the child's specific health problems. Early intervention has allowed many individuals with Down syndrome to lead a healthy and productive life. The presence of medical conditions like heart defects can affect the lifespan in these children and adults. However, most individuals with Down syndrome will live into their 60s. Miscarriage occurs in about 30% of pregnancies with Down syndrome, while overall about 1 in 700 babies are born with Down syndrome. So then they also test for trisomy 18, which is called Edwards syndrome. Babies with trisomy 18 have 3 copies of chromosome number 18 and have severe intellectual disabilities and birth defects, typically involving the heart, brain, and kidneys. Babies with trisomy 18 can have visible birth defects such as an opening in the lip, cleft lip, with or without an opening in the roof of the mouth, cleft palate, small head, clubbed feet, underdeveloped fingers and toes, and a small jaw. Unfortunately, most pregnancies with trisomy 18 will miscarry. If born alive, most babies affected with trisomy 18 will pass away within the first few weeks of life. About 10% survive to their first birthday, which is not many. Trisomy 18 occurs in approximately 1 in 3,000 live births. So then there's trisomy 13, which I believe is the Pateau syndrome. Forgive me again if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Babies with trisomy 13 have 3 copies of chromosome 13. They often have birth defects involving the heart, brain, and kidneys. Visible abnormalities include extra fingers and or toes, or an opening in the lip, with or without an opening in the palate. Given the severe disabilities, most pregnancies affected by trisomy 13 will miscarry. If born alive, most affected babies with trisomy 13 will pass away within the first few weeks of life. About 10% survive to their first birthday. Trisomy 13 occurs in approximately 1 in 500 or 1 in 5,000 live births. And then there is monosomy X, which is something they also test for, is a sex chrome abnormality. So that covers something called Turner syndrome, Klinefelter syndrome, triple X syndrome, and Jacobs syndrome. So babies with monosomy X are females who have 1 X chromosome instead of 2. Unfortunately, a high proportion of pregnancies with monosomy X will result in a miscarriage in the first or second trimester of pregnancy. Babies with monosomy X that make it to term may have heart defects, learning difficulties, and infertility. In most cases, girls with monosomy X will need extra medical care, including hormone therapies at various stages of life. Then there's Klinefelter syndrome. Boys with Klinefelter syndrome have an extra chromosome, so they have XXY instead of XY. This condition can be associated with learning difficulties and behavioral problems. Men with Klinefelter syndrome may be infertile. About 1 in 1,000 babies will be born with that syndrome. Triple X is girls with triple X have an extra X chromosome. Girls with this condition may be taller than average and may experience learning difficulties or behavioral problems. Approximately 1 in 800 will be born with an extra X chromosome. And then Jacobs syndrome is boys that have Jacobs syndrome is XYY, so they have an extra Y chromosome. It says they do not have any birth defects. Boys with XYY may be taller than average and have an increased risk for learning, speech, and behavioral problems. Approximately 1 in 650 boys will be born with an extra Y chromosome. So then the other things that they test for are, so babies with triple D have a complete extra set of chromosomes for a total of 69 instead of 46. So you get 23 from your mom, 23 from your dad, for a total of 46. But with triploidy, they have 23, 23, and 23, which equals 69. At 10 weeks gestation, 1 in 1,000 pregnancies is affected by triploidy. It is extremely rare for these pregnancies to reach term, as they typically spontaneously miscarry early in pregnancy. Those few live births usually pass away within days of delivery due to heart, brain, and kidney problems. Babies with triploidy also have birth defects affecting the extremities and face. Carrying a baby with triploidy can increase the mother's risk for a variety of conditions, including preeclampsia, which can lead to seizure, and excessive bleeding after delivery. In rare instances, triploid pregnancies can persist and progress to a type of cancer called choriocarcinoma. Knowing about triploidy allows the physician to monitor the health of the mother appropriately. So then there's another thing called a microdeletion. The other genetic screenings, most of those have extra chromosomes, whereas microdeletion is caused when a chromosome is missing a small piece. So the severity of the problems caused by microdeletion is determined primarily by the size and location of the deletion. For instance, features of the 22q11.2 deletion syndrome tend to be different and may be less severe than Angelman syndrome, which is a microdeletion involving chromosome 15. Like, there's so much I did not know, you guys. So 22q11.2 deletion syndrome, also called the DeGeorge syndrome or velocardiofacial syndrome, VCFS, is caused by a missing piece of chromosome number 22. About 1 in every 2,000 babies is born with the 22q11.2 deletion syndrome. The majority of children with this disorder have heart defects, immune system problems, and specific facial features. Most children with 22q11.2 deletion syndrome have mild to moderate intellectual disability and speech delays. Some will also have low calcium levels, kidney problems, feeding problems, and or seizures. About 1 in 5 children with this syndrome have autism spectrum disorder. They're not saying that they can screen for autism. What they're saying is that 1 in 5 with that deletion syndrome have autism. So there's that. And then 1 in 4 adults with that deletion syndrome have a psychiatric illness like schizophrenia. So then there's the Prader-Willi syndrome. It occurs when either a small piece of chromosome 15 is missing or when both copies of chromosome 15 come from the same parent, called uniparent disomy. Oh, so babies with Prader-Willi syndrome have low muscle tone and problems with growth and feeding. Children with Prader-Willi syndrome have delayed milestones, short stature, rapid weight gain, leading to obesity and intellectual disability. About 1 in 10,000 babies are born with that syndrome. Then there's the Angelman syndrome. That happens when a small piece of chromosome 15 is missing or when both copies of chromosome 15 come from the same parent. About 1 in 12,000 babies are born with that. Babies and children with Angelman syndrome have severe intellectual disability, delayed milestones, seizures, and problems with balance and walking. And then there is 1p36 deletion syndrome, also referred to monosomy 1p36, is caused by a missing piece of chromosome 1. Children with this syndrome have intellectual disabilities. Most have heart defects and weak muscle tone. About half of affected individuals have seizures, epilepsy, behavior problems, and hearing loss. Some children also have vision problems or additional birth defects of other organs. About 1 in 5,000 newborn babies have that deletion syndrome. The last one, it says Crude-Chat syndrome. A missing piece of chromosome 5 causes Crude-Chat syndrome, also called 5p minus syndrome. The name Crude-Chat was given to the syndrome due to the high-pitched cat-like cry the babies with the syndrome often make. Babies with Crude-Chat syndrome typically have low birth weight, small head size, and weak muscle tone. Feeding and breathing problems are common in infancy. Children with this disorder have moderate to severe intellectual disability, including speech and language delays. They may also have growth delays, behavior problems, and some have curvature of the spine, scoliosis. About 1 in every 20,000 babies is born with Crude-Chat syndrome. They may also have heart defects, growth delay, behavior problems, and some have curvature of the spine. So that's some of the things that they screen for, and then they can also report on the sex of the baby. So some insurance companies will cover this, but also I believe it's just like, I think it's less than $200 if your insurance doesn't cover it. By the way, it says this is a screening test, not diagnostic. It evaluates genetic information in the maternal blood, which is a mixture of maternal and placental DNA, to determine the chance for specific chromosomal abnormalities. So overall test specifications. Sensitivity is the ability to correctly identify a truly high-risk case as high risk. For example, in a group of trisomy 21 cases, this test will correctly identify more than 99% of those cases. So as far as trisomy, it says 99%. For trisomy 18, 98.2%, trisomy 13, 99%, monosomy X, 94.7%, triploidy, 99%, the XXX, XXY, XYY, it says reported when identified. So if that is identified in your testing, that will be, like the percentage will be listed there for like each individual mother. 22q 11.2 deletion syndrome, 90%. 1p36 deletion syndrome, 99%. Angelman syndrome, 95.5%. Chromosome syndrome, 99%. Prader-Willi syndrome, 93.8%. If you got a high risk for monosomy X, those all fall under sex chromosome abnormalities. So that will, from what my understanding, it will tell you what the percentage is for like your baby if you come up as at risk for monosomy X or any of the other sex chromosome abnormalities. Like the deletion syndromes, if you come up as a high risk for any of them, they will bring up the one that you're at risk for, from what my understanding is. And if you are not at risk for them, it's not going to say, it'll just say low risk for whatever. There is something that you also have to keep in mind. They have to have at least 4% of fetal fraction in order to establish your risk. They need to have a certain amount of your fetal fraction. And I didn't know what that meant, but fetal fraction is where they can tell what percentage of the mother's blood is the fetus's blood and what percent is the mother's blood. So they prefer to have 10 to 15% of fetal fraction in order to establish these assessments. But they do say that at least 4% is necessary, but they prefer 10 to 15. So they they put 12% of my fetal fraction. So that's good. That's within the 10 to 15% range. So my results came through, and it's crazy because they actually called me Tuesday. Was it Tuesday? No, Monday. Today is Tuesday. What am I thinking? Oh no, today's Wednesday. They called me on Monday, and I did not expect to get my results back that fast. I was expecting 5 to 7 business days, but like I said, I did my testing on last Tuesday, so it was only so Wednesday, Thursday. So it was technically 3 business days from the time that they submitted my blood to this lab. So the nurse calls me and she's like, hey, Amber, we got your NIPT results. And I said, oh, okay. I said, okay. Like I was totally taken aback because I was not expecting it. And I had looked online to see if my results were posted by chance. Of course they weren't. Like I said, I just got these online postings today, whereas I got the verbal results on the phone on Monday. But she wanted to know if I wanted to know if it was a boy or girl. And I was like, I do. I said, but is everything okay? Like she didn't even go through like the test. She just said, she went right from we got your results to do you want to know what the sex of your baby is? And I'm like, I do want to know, but I want to know first and foremost, is my baby okay? Because I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh yeah. So it was Sunday night. I was freaking out. I was just like having I was devastated. I was devastated. I was going crazy. I was just looking stuff up, going to Dr. Google, as they say not to do. Long story short, she says, she's like, I'm so sorry, honey. She's like, everything is fine. Your baby's perfect. She's like, as far as we know right now, because obviously there's still more testing they do in the future. Like, and I was asking about this too. She's like, gestational diabetes, some kind of strep or Tdap or something like that. I don't know. But some kind of strep or Tdap or something like that. I don't know. But as far as this stuff goes, this is what she said. So she's like, you're good. Everything's great. And I'm like, oh, okay. I was in so much shock that when she told me what I'm having, I was kind of like, my reaction was like, oh, okay. Like I was still going through I was still trying to process like, oh my God, like a sigh of relief. But I didn't really get to like, I wasn't like so celebratory or whatever, like, oh my God, I'm having this. Because I was so focused on this. So that was pretty much it. And then I was like, okay, well, I went online and I saw that there's a list and like each one is either low risk, high risk, low risk. So I'm like, okay, I don't understand. I want to know specifics, right? Because I of course, I just freaked myself out. So here we are. So every single one says that low risk. Every single one is low risk. So basically, before testing, it was saying like trisomy 21, risk before test, 1 out of 266. Trisomy 18, 1 out of 703. Trisomy 13, 1 out of 2,190. Monosomy X, 1 out of 568. Triploidy, it doesn't say anything because like I said, for like some of those some of the sex ones, like the sex abnormality chromosome ones, and also the triple they don't have specific percentages until like a mother comes up as a high risk. Then it would say like what those percentages are for each individual one. Before the total of them, it just says low risk. And then the condition tested, the microdeletions, so that covers all those before test risk was 1 out of 2,000. So then my risk after for every single one is 1 out of 10,000, which is obviously a much different comparison when you're thinking of 1 out of 266 versus 1 out of 10,000. Like, okay, that's amazing. And then for the microdeletion, like I said before, risk before test 1 out of 2,000, risk after test 1 out of 9,000. So my baby has, overall it just says low risk. So that's why I guess she said that over the phone, but she didn't like explain to me anything. I didn't really ask. I was just kind of in shock. Like, I'm okay. Like, everything's okay. My baby's good. Oh my God. Thank you, God. Thank you, universe. So, yes. So I am beyond grateful. Again, I wanted to make this video, and any video that I make on this channel regarding this pregnancy, because it's my first pregnancy and I'm really excited, but also I have a lot of questions and I don't know a lot of these things. Like, I had no idea that this was a thing, you know? And then even further, like, I didn't even know that it was a separate testing place I had to go to. Like, I gave 8 vials of blood at my doctor's office. I thought it was for all of this. So when I went to my second appointment, turns out they didn't even give me the kit that I needed, and I was supposed to go down to a different location to give 2 separate vials of blood. So these are things that I think could be helpful for someone. I wish I would have known this before, because I was really stressed out. These things, when it comes to, if it comes up as a positive or like a high risk, this test itself is saying like this is not 100% positive. You know, like I said, so for some of the testing, there is a big chance, you know, 9% and higher, that, or like 7% for the one and higher, that some of these tests that come up positive or high risk, they very well could not be. So then after that, you would talk to your doctor, your OBGYN, and a genetic specialist, and then either not do any further testing or do the amniocentesis, the CVS testing, and then they can also do a full scan of your child to also determine the likelihood of some of these chromosomal disorders, because they can test, or they can measure the nose, the nose bone. They can measure the back of the neck, because some of those can be indications of some of these chromosomal abnormalities. Like there's some, I think it's called a precursor to some of those things. So if you don't do the screening, they can also tell by like the scan of of your fetus, your baby. So if you're doing this and your tests come back as high, as a high risk, I would not, I mean, I can't tell you not to freak out, because obviously I would freak out. I mean, I freaked out before I got my results back, but just know that it's not 100% set in stone. That is one thing that, you know, you can know for sure. And there are the next steps to find out with your doctor and go from there, and, you know, to do everything that is in your control, because like I said, these are things that are not prevented by anything you could do or have done. This is stuff that is unfortunately could happen from, you know, your partner or your egg that was fertilized, or their sperm that fertilized the egg. And it could just be like genetic mutation. And it, you know, just because you have a high risk pregnancy this time, like whenever you're watching this, doesn't mean, you know, that all of your future pregnancies are going to be a high risk either. Like this is just one of those things, you know. But again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a specialist, obviously. I don't know any. Yeah. I don't know if any of you guys found this video helpful, if any of you guys will in the future. All I know is this drove me crazy for a while. You know, I was just scared because this is not in my control. There's nothing I could do about it. And I was really freaked out and worried and scared for the health of my baby, because I love my baby so much. And now that I know what my baby is, It's really cool to know that. And honestly, that was the first thing that I thought about when I wanted to do this, and I agreed to do this elective testing, you know, because I wanted to know my babies right away. But then when I was looking into like further, like, oh, this is what they're testing for, I really scared myself. So yeah, I am going to tell you guys what I'm having, but not in this video. My gender reveal video will be coming soon, but I still have some people in my family that I haven't told anybody yet. I've only told obviously my partner, and I told my friend. I went to her baby shower last week, so it's pretty cool. So I couldn't not tell her because we hung out yesterday. So again, but yeah, I want to do something for like, you know, family and, you know, close friends, and then I'll put it on the internet. So yeah, I don't know. Thumbs up this video if you want. Subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys like the content on this channel. There's definitely going to be more consistent content soon.